Ever since I visited IMAX Melbourne back in July to discover the process behind displaying 1570mm Oppenheimer IMAX film, I've been absolutely blown away by not only the response that the video got, but how passionate people are towards the film, not only in a positive way, but also in a negative way too. I've had the chance to read thousands of comments on Oppenheimer, not on just my video, but on others as well, surrounding the film and its distribution, and it's been really fascinating. From comments and feedback that are completely disregarding the film because they're obviously not too huge fans of Christopher Nolan, to people that are really interested in learning more about what is a very rare format. And for me personally, over the last few months, I've spent over 10 hours in movie theaters watching Oppenheimer, and strangely enough, after I finished the film for the second time, I was really thinking about the next time I wanted to book to go see the film again. I really wanted to share my experiences of viewing Oppenheimer in 3 different formats, which I think really represent a good coverage on the different viewing experiences. Firstly, I experienced the movie in IMAX 1570 film. Then I watched it in IMAX 1:43:1 digital projection in the same theatre at IMAX Melbourne. And then lastly, I saw it in widescreen 70mm film at my local Village Cinemas Rivoli, which is a really nice old theatre. Beginning with IMAX 1570, now to me, this is by far the highest quality movie format that I've ever seen, both in terms of watching movies at home, going to the movie theaters and everything, especially with those true 1570mm IMAX film sequences. This is where the entire 1:43:1 aspect ratio of the screen was completely filled in my IMAX theater, and because it's in IMAX Melbourne, it is the height of 7 stories, like a 7-story building. To me, Christopher Nolan really isn't lying when he says that it is the highest possible quality format ever devised for cinema capture.
IMAX 70mm 15 per film is the highest quality imaging format that's ever been devised. And so where it's possible to present the film that way, I like to, and where it's possible for an audience to find that presentation.
Comparing this to 4K digital projection, which is what I saw after seeing it in 1570 around about a week or so later, the 4K digital projection really felt like there was a blur layer on top of the digital projection. And this really makes sense because when I came across a tweet that demonstrated that an 11K resolution scan of IMAX 1570 was at 500 megabytes per frame, and obviously when you scan this film, compress it into a transferable viewable size, and then project it at 4K, you're of course going to lose some quality compared to just viewing it straight from 1570 IMAX film. The scene that most stood out to me in the film as being really incredibly high quality was this particular moment when Cillian Murphy, playing Oppenheimer, was addressing the Los Alamos community after the reported bombing, and as he was addressing the community, when the camera panned going across the face of all of the people in the town, I have to be serious, I have never seen a picture quality that close to what my normal eyesight would be, and the film process and capturing images and how it is transferred onto film is very similar to how the human eye sees things. So I have to say that moment there made me really realize how good of a experience IMAX is, and the people truly, although they were massive on this 7-story projector, looked like they were real people that I could go out and touch. And I know a quote that Nolan uses a lot is that IMAX in film is like 3D but without the glasses.
It's an incredible way to see it. The screen really disappears. I refer to it as 3D without the glasses. You know, this massive, clear, crisp, bright image that you can lose yourself.
The crisp quality of the image, although it wasn't over sharpened at all, looks incredible, and that's something that really stood out to me. So that wraps up my IMAX experiences. Once again, I saw it in 1570 film and 4K laser projection, both at IMAX Melbourne. They were both great. You were able to get the sheer scale of everything in both formats, but with the digital format, it definitely felt like a lot of the quality was lost because you are compressing true film imagery, which is really high resolution, through a 4K projector on a massive screen, and trust me, it just looks incredible. So if you do have the opportunity to ever see a film in 1570mm film, do go out there and see it. Or for example, if you're going on a holiday to Melbourne or other parts of the world that have those theaters, make sure you go that and check it off your bucket list, because it is totally worth it. Which brings me to my final film experience of watching Oppenheimer recently before I go back in a week and watch Oppenheimer again in IMAX 1570, and that is when I watched it in 70mm film, widescreen film, not IMAX, in one of my city's oldest Art Deco theaters that are still around and has been around since I think the 1920s or 30s. The theater is called Village Cinemas Rivoli, and out of the 3 experiences or screenings that I had, this was without a doubt one of the most unique movie experiences I've had in a long time watching a film at any cinema. Both from a cinematic visual perspective, but also from a general enjoyment perspective and overall theater experience. And the best way I can properly describe this experience was that it really felt like I was going back to the 60s or 70s and watching a film from back in that time. I recently actually watched All the President's Men, which was obviously shot all on film, and that was an incredible movie, and that felt like a 60s or 70s movie. And when I did watch Oppenheimer in IMAX, it did still feel like a modern movie, but going back to Village Cinemas Rivoli, there was grit and grain and texture, and I absolutely loved it. And the Art Deco style of the cinema that I got to sit in and experience was really truly something. I used to work at this cinema a long time ago, and I didn't obviously appreciate the Art Deco style of the theater back then, but I do definitely now. There's something special about going to an old movie theater, and really it felt like I was going back in time to watch an old movie, and especially without the big changing aspect ratios. It was just 70mm widescreen, not the 1:43:1, so that made it really, really special beyond the just screen experience. The film print was the most gritty, textured print of them all. I couldn't really tell much of a difference between what shots were done on IMAX cameras versus just on regular 35mm cameras. They all seamlessly blended together. The black and white sequences had a bit of a green tint to them, which is something that I didn't really notice in the IMAX sequences, so that was maybe something to do with the actual film print that I was watching it on versus what was actually being seen in the IMAX Melbourne theater, so that was something interesting that I noticed. Also, a really cool moment which I haven't experienced in a long time. Around about 3 or 4 times throughout the movie, I definitely noticed in the top right hand corner of the screen, you saw the blinking little icon that came up that indicated to the film projectionist to change film rolls. A movie I watched recently, Empire of Light, really demonstrated that perfectly.
Listen for the rear end bell. Open the dowser. Here comes the first blob of Doom Motor Cue. After the order. Here comes second blow. Go! Yes!
So that was really cool to see. Obviously the film is 3 hours long, and it's not an IMAX projector where they have the massive dish that's able to hold the entire film on one roll. They had to switch projectors throughout the entire film. So that happened around about 3 or 4 times, and again, it made me really feel like I went back in time to watch the movie. Notably, the one thing that was slightly a bit worse, or actually I guess a lot bit worse compared to watching it in IMAX, was the lack of surround sound, or I guess the sound immersion was nowhere near as significant as it was in IMAX. I remember watching Oppenheimer for the first time, and when, again spoilers if you haven't seen the movie of course, but just before the bomb sound wave after the Trinity test was done and hit you, because obviously the people were around about 2 kilometers at minimum away from the blast, or potentially even more. I'm not a physicist, so I can't remember. But that was shocking. It was silent, and then bang! I was like, my chair shook and everything. But watching it in the Art Deco theater, the speakers were good, but moments like that definitely did not hit. So that was something that I appreciated watching the third time, knowing that it was that instrumental watching it the first and second time in an IMAX digital and film theater. If you have the opportunity, go and see Oppenheimer, or really if you can go see Interstellar, The Dark Knight, Dunkirk, any of the Christopher Nolan movies in IMAX. Nope even is a good film that came out by Jordan Peele that was shot on IMAX cameras. Go and see it in 1570mm IMAX, because that is the best way that you can see it. It's more expensive, but trust me, it is worth it, both on a quality level too. I think the experience is fantastic, and I love going to the IMAX Melbourne theater. If you can't see it in IMAX film, IMAX digital, now true IMAX digital, not just the Limax theaters where they have a 16:9 screen and it's really not proper IMAX. I mean, true IMAX theaters, try and go see it there. But my experience going to the 70mm screening of Oppenheimer was something that I'm never going to forget, and I can't wait to actually go back and watch other movies in that format, because like I said, it's just a special experience. Going there on I think it was like a late Sunday afternoon. The cinema was pretty empty, which I guess is a good indication of how much people actually care about it after a few weeks of release. It was something special, and it genuinely, when I came out, I looked at all these cars that were modern and everything. It's like, oh, okay, I'm back to reality again. So anyway, how did you go and watch Oppenheimer? I'm really curious to hear. Feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Have a wonderful day, stay safe, and of course, do take care.